A country small enough to be circled on foot is a country where every headland and every cove has had time to be named by someone who lived beside it. The path crosses the cliffs of Pembrokeshire, Sir Benfro in Welsh, where the rock falls away into water that is rarely still. Fishing boats still work these inlets, as they have for centuries, though fewer of them each decade. The most vertical moment on the whole route comes in the north. A lighthouse stands on South Stack, a fist of rock separated from the mainland, built by Trinity House in 1809. And reached by a bridge, and then a descent of 400 steps cut directly into the cliff face. The cliff itself is a seabird city. Guillemots and razorbills pack the ledges through the breeding season. And the noise of them rises up the stairway as the walker goes down. Further south, the estuary of the Modoc changes its entire face twice a day. At high water, it is a broad sheet of silver pressed between wooded hills. Six hours later, it is sand, channels, and shallow mirrors. It keeps rearranging itself, on schedule, whether or not anyone is watching. And on the map of all this, almost every place carries a name that outsiders cannot pronounce. The name of the headland above that lighthouse is longer than the stairway itself. The green of this country is not a matter of taste, it is a measurement. Britannica puts the average rainfall across Wales at around 1,385 millimeters a year. But the average hides how uneven the country is. The southwest coast and the inland hills take more than 1,500 millimeters. Parts of the remaining coastline get between 850 and 1,000. The rain does not fall evenly on Wales. It falls on the parts of Wales that stand up. The mechanism is simple and relentless. Westerly air comes off the Atlantic already loaded with moisture, meets the mountains, and has nowhere to go but up. Rising air cools, and cooling air lets go of its water. The Met Office counts the uplands of Eryri among the wettest ground in Britain, where gauges record more than 4 meters of rain in a single year. Eryri's own annual totals run past 3,000 millimeters. What that means on the ground is mist that sits in the valleys until midday. Streams that never run dry, and moss on every north-facing stone. That water made the shape of the place. Around a quarter of the land in Wales lies above 305 meters, and the combination of altitude, thick soil and permanent damp means most of it can be used for one thing only: grazing. The highest ground rises to 1,085 meters, or 3,560 feet. On English maps, it is Snowdon. Its name here is Yr Wyddfa. In November 2022, the authority that runs the national park voted to use the Welsh names first in all official communication. Yr Wyddfa rather than Snowdon, Eryri rather than Snowdonia. It was not a rebranding exercise. It was a decision about which language gets to describe the ground. For anyone planning to stand on it, the practical window runs from May through September, when temperatures sit between roughly 8 and 18 degrees Celsius. And that name, Yr Wyddfa, is worth pausing on. It does not mean snow, or summit, or anything a walker would expect. It means something else entirely, and the reason has been sitting on that mountain for a very long time. The postcard version of this landscape, the cropped green, The stone walls running up impossible gradients is not a landscape at all. It is a workplace. In June 2024, the Welsh government counted 8.7 million sheep and lambs across the country. The lowest figure since 2011, down from close to 12 million in the 1990s. Those animals are the reason the hills look the way they look. Set that number beside the people. The 2021 census recorded 3,107,500 usual residents in Wales, the highest population ever logged in a census here. The arithmetic gives about 2.8 sheep for every person as of 2024. Fewer than the ratio of previous decades, which is its own quiet story about a shrinking flock. Agricultural land covers about 90% of the total area, and population density sits at roughly half the United Kingdom average. Empty is not an impression. It is a land use statistic. Behind that statistic are households. Farm incomes here have had years when the average fell to somewhere around £28,400. When sheep and cattle farms in the harder upland areas were left with roughly $22,900. The picture is not fixed. Government figures for April 2024 to March 2025 show upland sheep farms recording the lowest proportion of losses of any farm type in Wales that year, at 9%. What the accounts do not show is why anyone stays with it. For many hill farming families, according to the National Museum, the flock is a living link to language. Identity and tradition, a chain of practice handed down with the fields themselves. Lambing decides the income of the whole year, and it arrives in the coldest, longest hours. A farmer out on the hill before dawn in March is not preserving a culture on purpose. He is checking use. But the words he uses to do it, to call the dog, to name the field, to count he has, come from a language that someone, once, went to considerable trouble to erase. There is a key to reading this country, and it fits about 9 words. Ordnance Survey, the national mapping agency, compiled the glossary with scholars at Bangor University, and the Royal Commission on the Ancient and Historical Monuments of Wales holds an independent list of some 600 place name elements. Lan means church or monastery, and by extension the settlement that grew around one. Llanelli is the church of Saint Eli. Llandudno, the church of Saint Tudno. Aber means estuary, the mouth where one body of water meets another. Cwm is a valley, a word English itself borrowed and turned into a geological term. Pen is head, top, end, the far edge of something. Four smaller pieces slot in alongside them. Caer is a fort, which explains both Caernarfon and Caerdydd. Bryn is a hill. Nant is a brook. Pont is a bridge, as in Pontypridd. Now the mechanism. A Welsh place name is usually not a label at all. It is a compressed sentence describing the ground, assembled from 2 or 3 of those elements. Aberystwyth is Aber plus Istwyth, the place where the river Istwyth reaches the sea. The town sits exactly where its name says it sits. And in a half-finished seafront hotel there, on the 16th of October, 1872, 25 students began attending the first university in Wales. Which brings the mountain back. Yr Wyddfa has nothing to do with snow. The closest translation is a burial mound, a tomb, and the story attached to it says the giant Rita Gower lies under the summit cairn. Every walker who reaches the top of Wales is standing, according to the name, on a grave. Then there is the longest of them all, Llanfair Pwllgwyngyll Gogorecher Drobwll Llantysilio Gogogoch. 58 letters, 18 syllables, the longest place name in Europe. Broken with the key, it opens cleanly. St. Mary's Church in the hollow of the White Hazel, near the fierce whirlpool, and the Church of St. Tysilio by the Red Cave. And here is the part that undoes the romance. The village was originally just Pulgwyngyl. Around 1869, by local account, the name was deliberately extended, a piece of marketing said to be the work of a local tailor, designed to make trains stop there. Which raises a harder question. If every name on the map is a sentence in this language, then anyone who wanted the language gone would have to do something about the map. Wales has the highest density of castles per square mile in Europe. National Geographic states it plainly, and density is the honest way to state it, because the absolute number depends entirely on what counts. Tourism sources reach past 600 by including ruined towers and grassy motte mounds. Cadw, the government heritage body, recognizes 427 under stricter archaeological criteria and directly cares for 44 of them. The disagreement is not sloppiness. It is a question about when a heap of stones stops being a castle. What is not in dispute is who built most of them. These fortresses were largely raised by Normans and by Edward I, and their purpose was occupation, holding a country that had just been taken. Conwy, Caernarvon, and Beaumaris form three links in what is commonly called the Iron Ring, a chain of strongholds locking down the north after the conquest. Caernarvon is the statement piece, its banded towers thought to be inspired by the walls of Constantinople. The name of the town, though, kept working underneath it. Caer, the fort. It was describing itself in Welsh long before the English kings arrived to make the description accurate. The Welsh names that belong to this century of stone are two. Llywelyn ap Gruffydd, remembered as Llewellyn the Last, was the only Welsh ruler formally recognized by the English crown as Prince of Wales. He was killed near Builth in Powys on the 11th of December, 1282. And within a year, everything he had held was under English rule. The second name comes 118 years later. Owain Glyndwr, born around 1354, launched a rebellion in September 1400. At its height, it controlled much of the country and convened its own parliament at Machynlleth, the last great assertion of Welsh independence before formal annexation in the 1540s. Then he vanished. Cadw states that his refuge and burial place are unknown. In the summer of 1415, King Henry V sent Gilbert Talbot to offer him a pardon, and got no answer. In 1416, Talbot was asked to try again, through Glyndwr's own son Meredud, and again nothing came back. A king offered mercy twice, and twice received silence. Whatever was left of that resistance had gone somewhere the crown could not reach. What could be reached, in the centuries that followed, was the schoolroom. In March 1846, a member of Parliament named William Williams proposed an inquiry into education in Wales. Three commissioners were appointed: R.R.W. Lingen, Jellinger C. Simons, and H.R. Vaughan Johnson, none of whom spoke the language of the country they were sent to assess. Their report appeared in 1847, bound in blue covers. It concluded that the Welsh language was a barrier to progress and passed judgment on the morals of the people who spoke it. Wales has known it ever since as Brad y Llifrau Glacian, the treachery of the Blue Books. What followed in some schools was a small piece of wood. The Welsh knot was a board, often marked with the letters WN, hung around the neck of any pupil caught speaking Welsh in class. The child wore it until another child was heard using the language, and then it passed on. Whoever had it at the end of the day took the punishment. National Museum Wales holds one in its collection, catalogue number 25.288, dated 1852, used at Pontgareg School in Llangrannog. It is on display today at St. Fagan's, in a gallery called Wales Is, Still Speaking Welsh. The museum is careful, and it is worth being careful with it. Some historians think the use of the Welsh knot has been exaggerated, that it was never universal policy, that its reach varied from school to school. What is not in question is the design of the thing. It required children to inform on each other in order to escape a punishment, and it made their own language the instrument of it. More than a century later, the pressure took a different shape. In 1957, Parliament passed a private act for the Liverpool Corporation, meaning the city needed no consent from any authority in Wales to proceed, and only one Welsh MP voted in favor of it. What it authorized was the flooding of the Tryweryn Valley. 48 residents of the village of Capel Celyn and the farms around it were uprooted. In 1965, the village and 12 farms went under, along with some 320 hectares, about 790 acres, of the valley floor. Capel Celyn had a school, a chapel and a cemetery, and almost everyone there spoke Welsh. It took an act of the British Parliament to remove 48 people. Then someone painted a wall. On a ruined cottage near Llanrhystad, two words appeared in the 1960s, Cofiwch Tryweryn. Remember Tryweryn. The wall has been vandalized repeatedly and repainted every time, white letters on red, by volunteers who keep turning up, and the slogan is now copied on walls the length of the country. In 2005, 40 years after the water came, Liverpool City Council apologized for the hurt caused and for the insensitivity of what was done. The valley did not come back. But 100 years before that wall was painted, roughly 150 people had already decided not to wait for their country to become survivable, and had answered the whole question by boarding a ship. Between the mountains of the northwest sits a town built out of its own waste. Blaenau Festiniog is surrounded by gray tips hundreds of feet high, the discard of the quarries, and for a stretch of the 19th century it was known as the town that roofed the world. Slate split from these hills-covered houses in Liverpool and London, in Hamburg, in Melbourne, in the industrial cities of the eastern United States. A roof in Pennsylvania could be a piece of a mountain in Gwynedd. The men who split it worked underground in cold, in dust, and in poor light, and the danger was constant enough that it stopped being remarkable to them. The industry took their lungs, and sometimes more. And this same district is where the language now lives most thickly of anywhere. The 2021 census counted 73,600 Welsh speakers in Gwynedd, more than any other local authority in the country. For most of the 20th century, the collapse of the trade left these valleys reading as ruin, abandoned inclines, flooded pits, a landscape people apologized for. Then, on the 28th of July, 2021, UNESCO inscribed the slate landscape of northwest Wales as a World Heritage Site, the fourth in the country. The same gray slopes that had been read as damage were now read as evidence, and the reading changed nothing about the rock. It changed who was doing the reading. The tunnels have a second life. At Leckwed, visitors descend more than 150 meters underground on one of the steepest narrow-gauge cable railways in the country, into chambers where the drills once ran. The air holds steady at 9 or 10 degrees, whatever the season, and it smells of wet stone. A century ago, men were paid to travel down that shaft. Today, people pay to make the same journey and come back up. A place can be recognized like this, listed and lit and given a plaque, and still be recognized for what it lost. The harder question is what in this country is alive right now without needing anybody's certificate at all. The honest place to start is with a number that is not flattering. The 2021 census recorded that 17.8% of people aged 3 and over could speak Welsh, 538,300 people. It is the lowest percentage ever recorded in a census here, and it continues a decline running from 2001. The 2011 count had 562,000 speakers, 19.0%. The map underneath that figure is uneven. Most speakers live in Gwynedd, with 73,600, and Carmarthenshire, with 72,800. The fewest are in Blaenau Gwent, around 4,000, and Merthyr Tydfil, around 5,100. The language holds hardest in the rural north and west, and thinnest in the industrial southeast, which is where most of the population lives. What this looks like on an ordinary weekday is a school run. Children here either speak Welsh at home or begin learning it the moment they enter the school system. In Gwynedd, a child who arrives from elsewhere or who transfers in from English medium education goes first to a language immersion center. Since the system was reorganized in January 2023, there have been 6 of these settings across the county, serving latecomers from primary age through secondary. Their job is to give a child enough of the language to then be taught entirely through it, not as an enrichment subject, as the medium of everything. In the villages, the pub does the social work it always did, and in some places, the community has bought its own to stop it closing. Then there is the peninsula. Lune reaches southwest into the Irish Sea, and it is the stronghold. Gwynedd is the most Welsh-speaking county in the country at 64.4% in the 2021 census. and within its 13 areas, the Caernarfon district reaches 85.3%, the highest anywhere. What matters more is the direction of travel. Against a national decline, Pen Lwn was one of only 3 areas in Gwynedd where the number of Welsh speakers actually rose between the 2011 and 2021 censuses. In Nefyn, the white houses still stand close to the waterline, much as they did a century ago. A language holding one peninsula is one thing. The more improbable question is how far this language traveled when it left. On the 28th of May, 1865, a converted tea clipper called the Mimosa left Liverpool carrying about 150 Welsh emigrants. They were not going to America, where their countrymen had been going for decades and assimilating within a generation. They were going to an empty stretch of Patagonia, in Argentina, on an agreement with a government that wanted the land settled. Two months later, they landed on the coast of Chubut with almost no farming knowledge suited to a desert. Their purpose was singular and, on paper, absurd. They intended to build Y Ladfa, the colony, a new Wales in which Welsh would be the default language of the courts, the chapel, the school, and the street. Not the language a person switched out of in order to get on. They were leaving to take a language somewhere it would not be corrected. They nearly starved for it. The first harvests failed, and the settlement survived partly because the Tehuelche, the indigenous people of that country, taught the newcomers to hunt. 160 years later, Welsh is still spoken every day in the Chubut Valley, almost 8,000 miles from the hills the Mimosa left. The British Council puts the number of Welsh speakers in the region at more than 6,000, the second largest community of speakers anywhere outside Wales itself, with around 50,000 people of Welsh descent living there. Chapel names in Welsh stand among Argentine streets, and tea houses in Gaiman serve bara brith to Spanish-speaking tourists. And what those children speak is not quite what their ancestors carried over. Patagonian Welsh has merged features of the northern and southern dialects, which back home still sound distinct to each other, and it has absorbed Spanish vocabulary along the way. It is a version of the language that does not exist in Wales. Here is the turn. Wales now sends teachers to Patagonia every year through a project the British Council established in 1997. They work across 3 areas of Chubut, the Andes, Gaiman, and Trelew, teaching Welsh to the descendants of the people who left. The country that could not keep them now flies out to give the language back. In 2015, for the 150th anniversary, the BBC National Orchestra of Wales traveled to Trelew and played to more than 1,000 people in a converted wool warehouse on the Patagonian plain. Which makes the reverse question unavoidable. If the language is worth 8,000 miles and a century and a half of effort, what is it like to live where it started, and what would it cost to try? start with the roof. According to the UK House Price Index, the average house price in Wales stood at about £213,000 in March 2026, among the lowest of any part of the United Kingdom. The ratio of house prices to median income sits at 5.8. Prices here rose 2.9% over the year, while the UK as a whole recorded no change at all. In the most Welsh-speaking rural counties, the figures run lower still, around £204,000 in Gwynedd as of May 2026, and about £241,000 in Ceredigion in January 2026. Then the door. Since the United Kingdom left the European Union, freedom of movement no longer applies to EU citizens, which makes the visa system the starting point of every calculation. According to the House of Commons Library, from the 22nd of July, 2025, the general minimum salary threshold for a skilled worker visa has been £41,700 a year, or the going rate for the occupation, whichever is higher. Indefinite leave to remain currently requires 5 continuous years, though a proposal to extend that to 10 has been through public consultation and is not settled. Immigration rules change, and anyone planning around them needs to check what applies on the day they apply. Next, the practical question nobody in a documentary usually answers: whether the internet works. Ofcom's Connected Nations Wales report, published in November 2025, found that by July 2025, about 81% of Welsh homes, roughly 1.2 million, had gigabit-capable broadband. In rural Wales specifically, close to half, 48%, had full fiber to the premises, up 11 percentage points in a single year, which means half of rural Wales can now hold a video call for a living, and half of it still cannot. And which half a person lands in depends on the postcode. Finally, the part no spreadsheet covers. In Gwynedd, a newcomer's children will be educated through Welsh once they have come out of the immersion center. That is a condition of living there, not an optional extra. And families who arrive expecting an English medium school with Welsh lessons attached have misread the country. As for connection to the rest of it, the fastest trains from London Paddington reach Cardiff in a little under 2 hours. Every one of these numbers assumes something the numbers cannot support, that the language will still be there in 20 years. There is one more thing that decides that, and it cannot be measured at all. It sits at the furthest, quietest edge of the country. Off the tip of the Lune Peninsula, across 2 miles of contrary water, lies a small island, Bardsey, or in Welsh, Ynys Enlli. Ynys means island. The key still works out here. It has been called the Island of 20,000 Saints, a figure that was never a count. It is a medieval way of saying that the holy dead of this coast are buried there in numbers nobody could hold in their head. The first monastery is said to have been founded by Saint Cadfan in the year 516, and by the Middle Ages, the tradition held that 3 pilgrimages to Enlli equaled 1 to Rome. People walked for weeks along the peninsula to reach the last headland, then waited, sometimes for days, for the tide in Bardsey Sound to allow the crossing. For the state of mind that produced such a journey, this language has a word English has to borrow, hiraeth. The dictionary compiled at the University of Wales Trinity St. David gives it as a deep longing for a person or thing absent or lost, a yearning, specifically a homesickness. That is what a country holds when it holds a language. Not a museum piece, an operating instruction for the ground under its feet. Whether the number reaches 1 million by 2050, nobody yet knows. But the signs are being read, and the reading is spreading. And for anyone who has just worked out what that upper line says, one question is worth leaving in the comments. What does the name of their own hometown actually mean?